This is your macroeconomics videos for Unit 4, just a couple of extra things at the end of the chapter. One of the first things I wanted to remind everybody about was a budget deficit. So when the US, which typically it does, runs a budget deficit, a whole bunch of things happen. National savings falls, which of course is the supply in our loanable funds graph. That would decrease, normally causing interest rates to rise. And as interest rates rise, we know what happens. It means investment spending falls because people don't want to spend a lot of money on loans to expand your business. We also know that capital inflow comes into the country, or we have net capital inflow. That means foreign money comes into our banking system. And this also makes the exchange rate go up, causing the US dollar to appreciate. And when the US dollar is expensive, it means we'd sell less exports because American goods are more expensive to foreigners. That also increases the trade deficit. So the budget deficit and the trade deficit are related to one another because they're all based on the interest rate. Some other effects. This also means that in order to pay for these deficits, we have to sell assets, financial assets, to foreigners in government securities, treasury securities, bonds, and stocks. This means that foreigners and foreign governments are going to acquire more and more of our debt or be paying for us to overspend. This, of course, can lead the US to become a debtor nation. It also complicates some of our other relationships in the world, geopolitical relationships, military relationships, and such. You can see here down below, this is a real data at the end of 2016, how much of American-owned foreign assets there are compared to foreign-owned American assets, and how much debt, US debt, is owed by the American government to the rest of the world. I also want to talk about a term called capital flight. Capital flight is when a large amount of capital or money, financial money, leaves a country suddenly. This typically is due to some instability, political instability that's going on in the country. So there are situations in which, due to some turmoil in the country, it doesn't matter what the interest rates are, people are leaving that country. I'm putting the example here in 1994, Mexican instability. But a really good example would be the coronavirus in Italy, in China, in the United States. Regardless of what our banks are offering in terms of interest rate, there's something else going on that is affecting the supply and demand of products, regardless of what types of good borrowing rates are offered by banks. We touched on bond prices a little bit in our practice problems, but just as a reminder, on how bonds work. Bond holders will purchase typically a long-term bond at a fixed rate. So if bonds are going in the marketplace for, let's say, 5%, you buy a 20-year bond at 5%. That is referred to as the coupon rate. Bondholders will earn a payment every single year that they hold on to that bond. So let's say 20 payments, and then at the end you get your original amount back plus your 20th interest payment. But you can also sell off your bond early. So in year 17, you can decide to sell your bond. You would be foregoing 3 years of interest and getting your principal amount back at the end. So in this case, if you're trying to sell your bond in year 17 and it doesn't mature until year 20, and you purchase that bond at 5%, let's say bonds are now worth 7%, so the bond interest rate has gone up. Nobody wants to buy your bond at 5% because they can buy a fresh, brand new bond at a much higher interest rate, earning them a better amount of interest. So as interest rates rise, people selling off bonds early are going to see their bond prices drop because nobody wants to buy it. You will have to sell it for much less than it's worth. Therefore, bond prices and interest rates have negative correlations.